So today we're gonna talk about studying art. Now everybody knows that sitting down to draw the basics is boring. It has to be, right? Well, over the past years, I've studied a few methods that made me realize that studying art is actually fun. So fun that you have to force yourself to stop. If you only approach it the right way, by doing what I'm about to say in this video, you're definitely gonna get better again. And it's even gonna be more fun than playing video games. By the way, I'm Matt. I drew a whole 80 pages fully illustrated art books in 3 months, staying motivated the whole time, and I'm here to tell you how I kept studying art and leveling up even during my project. To study art and make it actually enjoyable, you need to change the way you see studying art and treat it like a video game leveling up system. For example, you may say, I'll be studying hands today, and then you sit down and randomly just draw a couple of hands. You may get better over time, but this is not the most optimal approach, because I'm sure that you will get bored eventually and then not get back to study again. You need indeed to start treating your session like you're leveling up your character and your skills, exactly like in video games. Let me explain. If you 1. Divide your art by skills, 2. Set some goals, and 3. Track your progress, you're not only gonna be so much more motivated to continue your studies, but you're also gonna have a clear plan in front of you that you can follow and see if you're getting better or not. So imagine you're a warrior and you have to defeat that giant dragon boss. Now you see your stats and you see that your attack is weak, your magic is low, and your defense is not stable. Now you know your 3 weak points that you have to improve, and the goal is extremely clear. Level up your attack, level up your magic, and level up your defense. And you'll definitely defeat the boss, right? This is exactly what you're gonna do with your art. But first, you have to know your skills. I divided mine in categories: anatomy, form, lighting, color theory, perspective, and then I structure my working session to cover the full skill set over the month. 1 week I study anatomy, the other one I study color, and the other one I study anatomy again. You can do this even more effectively by setting goals. For example, I'll draw 50 hands this week, and at the end of the week, if you didn't draw 50 hands, you know what you have to do. And this way you don't have to guess what you have to do in the next working session, because you already planned it. Now if you combine this with tracking your progress, you're gonna have the clearest picture possible, exactly like a character skill set in a video game. And I'm sure you'll defeat the boss in no time. But you will still get bored. Yes, you might get more motivated at first, but studying anatomy is still studying anatomy. It's boring for the most part. But I've got this little secret that I've always kept to myself that is so powerful that I could have just included this one tip in the whole video and it still would have been super helpful. You need to actively avoid getting bored. Trust me, this is so overpowered. Now let me explain what I mean by that. Imagine you're studying perspective with boxes. Now I purposely picked the most boring stuff I could think of. It definitely is an effective exercise, but it's hard to be consistent with it because it's so boring. But now imagine if those boxes became cages with fantasy creatures inside, or they magically became fantastic buildings, or even spaceships. You may get where I'm going with this. You have to include stuff that you like, even if you're studying. If you study anatomy and just stick to drawing muscles with boring names, try and think of something that you like even before you're starting and write it on the top of the page. For me, I really like fantasy. So let's imagine that I'm drawing anatomy, as I said, and I'm drawing a dynamic pose. Why should that dynamic pose remain a mannequin when I can actually add a character and make, for example, a fighting scene? You then start to study what you have to study, for example, anatomy or perspective or forms, and you try to include something from that universe inside of the study, like the examples that I made before. You will be surprised on how much more motivated you're gonna be, and who knows, some of your studies could actually become some final pieces if you really like them. I have missed a step though. If you don't do what I'm about to tell you, you're definitely gonna stay in the I will never get good phase. When you start a study session, it often happens that your first sketches look really bad. And with that I mean that your forms look weird, your lines look wobbly, and this is where you blame yourself, saying that you cannot draw, and you throw the pencil away and just stop for the day. This is why warming up before starting is so important, not only to draw better, for your mental state while performing it. When you start, your first lines are definitely not gonna be perfect. So if your first lines are your first sketches, you're gonna think that your sketches suck. But if you make your first lines be something something irrelevant, like a warm-up exercise, you will draw enough to realize that the problem wasn't you. Trust me, the more you draw in your session, the better you're gonna be. Even in the span of 1 hour, you're gonna see improvements, and this is gonna motivate you to keep on going. Seeing my first sketches look bad is something that made me stop after 5 minutes of my session. I found out that after the first few sketches, you definitely get better because your hands get warmed up, the lines look better, and your overall performance is definitely more advanced. So keep on drawing, even if you think that your first sketches look bad. But sometimes even just getting up and sitting down to draw seems so difficult. Yes, you may now know how to keep going now that you started, but how to start in the first place? Here's a few techniques that help me with this. If you plan your sessions with accuracy in a specific moment of the day, the chances of you doing it are gonna be so much higher. You may be motivated by this video and say, perfect, thanks for the tips, Matt. I'll definitely start tomorrow. Tomorrow? Do you know that tomorrow is composed by 24 hours? I am sure that you will keep on procrastinating and end up not drawing at all. What is gonna help you so much to sit down and start committing is picking a specific time for the day and promise yourself that you'll start studying for a limited amount of time. I would say that a work block of 90 minutes is perfect. Don't just think it though, write it down on your calendar so you can be sure that you'll do it and not just let the time pass doing nothing. To make this even more powerful, you can structure your weeks with different training sessions, each one with a different skill and a different universe to study from. So you can be hyped, for example, for the Anatomy Warrior Day that is gonna come up in 2 days like you scheduled. Now you have your whole skill set down. You're not drawing boring stuff anymore. You're all warmed up and all your week is scheduled. What's your excuse now? If you have any, drop them in the comments and be sure that I'll help you with that too.